Maximum Health with your host, Dr. Ken Gray. With over 20 years in healthcare, Dr. Gray is a doctor of Oriental medicine and holistic physician fusing Eastern and Western healing. Dr. Gray is on staff at Jupiter Medical Center and in private practice with an office in Jupiter, Florida, where he resides. Dr. Gray enjoys being a physician as well as being an educator. His unique approach to holistic healing has taken him abroad to lecture in Baden-Baden, Germany, and treat sports professionals in Hawaii and Biarritz, France. He is co-author of several books on food therapy and the founder of the annual Star Summit Talks at the Norton Museum of Art in Palm Beach, Florida. Now it's time for Maximum Health with Dr. Ken Gray.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Maximum Health Radio, Quality Living with yours truly, Dr. Ken Gray. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening and also supporting our podcast on all the formats. And, I'm really fortunate to have someone that I've met over the years and have had brief conversations, but now we get to have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation on luxury. I have Margaret Luce. Miss Margaret Luce, thank you for joining us in the studio today.
Oh, thank you. What a treat.
She, among other things, is the managing editor of Lux magazine.
Mm-hmm. Lux Lifestyle.
Lux Lifestyle and luxury is really one of the things I've wanted to speak to you about for some time, because I feel that, I'm a person who sees health and wellness, and obviously the show has really brought that about, where we talk about health and wellness and quality living as having so many dimensions. And I think people are learning what works for them in these realms and how all aspects of their life can really speak to that. Mm-hmm. So I found it really exciting, and I was looking forward to this conversation, because you spend a lot of your time under the influence of luxury and how it influences others, and you're documenting that through your magazine and obviously through social involvement, and all the things that you do. You obviously do non-for-profits, you're in film, you live the luxury lifestyle, but you also bring it front and center through media. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
And
what a treat.
I'd like to start with a little bit of content on your background to kind of find out how you got here, because our path to these places are always so interesting, and also validates other people who might be in certain places of their lives and decide, hey, that makes sense to me, and this I understand why I'm making these shifts and changes in my life. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your background.
All right, well, I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version. I'm born to two immigrant parents from Ireland, and my dad was a world-class marathon runner. We were living in New York at the time, and he went to run a race in Westport, Connecticut. My mom thought, great place to raise the kids. And we moved from the Bronx to Westport, Connecticut, and it was lovely. So I was an hour away from the city. Athlete. Track was my life, cross country, basketball, and my fun injury that you have recently seen, skateboarding.
That was just the coolest, because sometimes I treat musculoskeletal issues, and I tell my patient, I'm like, you have to make up a better story than that, because there'll be something silly, exactly. That they just, I'm like, it's not an interesting story, but your story was great. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Skateboarding, hell yeah.
I think my nickname is now Tanya Hawk.
Oh, that's great.
Tony Hawk's wife.
Yeah. But it wasn't skateboarding like where people normally skateboard. Where was it?
It was actually at the Breakers Hotel.
There you go.
I was
I
breaking
wanted you
rules.
to say it, because
so
that was
come
other
find
thing.
me.
Yeah, it was breaking the rules, breaking the law, as Beavis and Butthead would say.
In Palm Beach.
Yeah, in Palm Beach at the Breakers. So that's the type of person we're talking to, listeners. Just so you
the Bronx never left me.
That's it. Good for you. Good for everyone like you and us.
Growing up, actually, we did have a ramp at the house in Westport. My brother was a big skateboarder. He used to go into the city on the weekends and make $20. So then the acting bug hit me in high school. And I really did not enjoy, believe it or not, the high school teacher and class. And I thought, I've always been very open. There's an openness. And sometimes if something doesn't suit or fit you, hey, just move on. Yeah. Not everything is meant for us. And the school environment, I just wanted out. The fluorescent lights, everything, it just didn't. I've always had a little creative tone. And I didn't like the restriction as much. So I started going to the city, HB Studios, the Uta Hagen method, which is wonderful. It's a great practice in life because it's all about listening and reacting, in the way that you really hear things. Because sometimes I think we react because we're not really listening or hearing things, and it can be sort of throw you off. And then I was kind of discovered. I became a Ford model, and that changed my life forever. So when I was finished with high school, I took a break from going to college.
And just for our listeners that may not be privy to the fashion world, even growing up, I knew Ford Modeling Agency was like one of the top, if there was maybe top three in the world.
It definitely,
right?
when you say Ford, it definitely carries that weight.
Huge.
It's kind of nice.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's like bam.
Yeah.
Like bam.
Yeah.
And I loved it, and I love work, and I just couldn't believe. I worked at a little consignment shop after school, Mary Moppett's actually, and you're making $7 to $12 an hour, and I just couldn't believe back then it was like $50 for a little Saturday photo shoot, and I was just super thrilled. And then obviously in New York, really the money started to roll, and fortunately because I was a good athlete and I was really, successful in keeping the school ranking up, they really gave me a lot of freedom, which is I would love to see in today's world too with schools, because sometimes schools are not meant for everyone. I kind of follow Elon Musk's philosophy on that. If you know what you're going to do, throw yourself into it. And so that really, really was my beginning. And then, of course, the zest for travel, and the appreciation for the travel, and having, this close perimeter, living in Westport, being so close to New York, where the arts are there, the culture is there. It was really an amazing childhood. And my teenage years were really fantastic. I love to work. I've always loved to work and be productive. And even when I was doing well in life, I would take side jobs and I would do certain things that I just enjoy it. I like being busy.
So for you, where did the luxury lifestyle come in? And what does that mean to you? Because you're where you're coming from.
Sure.
And I would say, like me, I mean, I grew up in Queens, right? And I was just, as you're talking, I'm thinking about what made me aspire, what made me like the things that I like, that I find to be part of the essence and the qualities of quality living, right?
Yeah.
I grew up in Queens,
Sure.
Washington, Queens. We had very next to zero money. I mean, my listeners know food stamps. I used to love when we get them, because I could go and do the shopping with my mom, and we could pick out some things, and some of them, maybe we could squeeze in as that was allowed by food stamps. But I remember those days very, they were very important to me, because up until then we didn't have too much food in the fridge and in the cupboards. Right. And so fast forward, I didn't have what my kids have, which is the ability to play different sports. I had handball, and maybe stickball, but since I wasn't too good at hitting this little ball with a broomstick, I didn't really play much stickball, but I did like handball because I had big hands.
But you're really good with that, injecting that little needle.
Which I could play the piano. I had great hand control, and which I didn't find out later until I started being a healer, and people love my touch and my application of needles and all these sort of things, which are great. But that being said, point is there was this space of development, and thinking luxury. We're watching. My wife and I are watching this series about supermodels, right?
Sure.
It's been released, and it has your Christy Turlington, your all the big ones, right? And telling their backstory.
Sure.
And how there was a time where people were kind of at they reached a stardom. There was these people that say, well, there's a false image being portrayed that's unreasonable to people. So I think there's an aspect of that can be applied to all luxury, that, hey, if you don't have it, you shouldn't flaunt it. Because if you have it, you shouldn't flaunt it, because what about those people who don't have it?
Sure.
What about those people who, right? What about those people who can't be a supermodel or are not tall or whatever it is? There's all these things. But I will tell you this. It is those people, for me, which were high fashion, or the Bruce Lees of the world, who all these people, Michael Jacksons, whatever it was, that I didn't think of myself being less. I thought of them as examples of what I could attain
Lovely.
in my own way. Right. And I think that is the lesson that we need to start to teach our kids and people, not like, oh, don't shine because others might be blinded by your light. No, shine because it might encourage others to shine. And so that's kind of what I wanted to, really look at when it comes to luxury and healing and how it has to do with wellness, is because those things that I read, those magazines, because I couldn't afford the other stuff, but I could save for a magazine, or I could get a free magazine, or ask, if I went to an office. I still do that sometimes when it's out of date. May I have this magazine? Because,
I love that.
they're inspired, and there's all different, whether it's GQ, or Vanity Fair, all these wonderful magazines out there.
Vogue, Italian Man,
Vogue, all of it. And now my collection's a lot different, and obviously I have Lux in my office, and because I love it sitting there, because wellness and hope and inspiration and illumination and elevation, they're all good things, right? If we don't have something to aspire for, we kind of stop living. We kind of stop wanting to live. So that's, I think, we're outlining this because you and I, coming from these places in the world, and loving these things, which are not all about luxury, still there's this place for it in our heart, which skateboarding at the Breakers really defines. Right?
Thank you.
Me riding a motorcycle through Palm Beach or through Jupiter Island. There's something to be said about that.
I think you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
Wearing my leather blazer to a luncheon at the Palm Beach Yacht Club where I lecture.
Yeah.
There's something about that.
A little rock star.
Which redefines luxury and what it is for us. And, so that's kind of what I think you're doing a little bit in your magazines and in your lifestyle, and you're living it. So
I got a compliment the other day, and someone said, I like that not everything in your magazine is thousands of dollars and things. And 'cause sometimes I'll give them like a little hint on where to go or what to do, and it's like, oh great, that's so affordable.
Right.
We have that wonderful paddleboarding place down the road in Jupiter, and it's great. And you can go, and it's almost like you're on vacation, but you're spoiling yourself because somebody else is putting the paddleboards in. They're giving you the vest, they're giving you the bottle of water, and then you go to Guanabanas or something afterwards. So people really appreciate those. And I think, in luxury, for me, less is sometimes more. And working with designers always Gianfranco Ferré was one of my favorites. He was this wonderful, lovely, large Italian man. And his fittings, he would just be so one-on-one. And I really started to understand what goes into this multi-billion-dollar business. And it's almost less is more, so that when you really experience, like, the cashmere on a Bruno Cucinelli compared to what you might buy an acrylic sweater, in Sears as a kid, then you just really start understanding what true luxury is. And it's sometimes just having one motorcycle. It's just having one of the best, but that you can afford. And then when you really buy it, you just treat it so well. It's interesting because I have so many conversations with people like that, and it's sort of, to me, it's a little excessive. I think America tends to be a little excessive, whereas I spent really most of my youth in Europe, and it's like they would have that one pair of great Italian shoes that would last 3, 4 seasons, 5 seasons, sometimes a lifetime. The sweater, and also growing up with parents, like, immigrant parents, my mom would like darn something, and it just, you'd still have it. And it's almost like a patch of honor that I still have some of my jackets from my teen years. So luxury to me is also buying high quality. And I was very cognizant. I think the first piece that I bought myself was a Rolex Daytona.
Okay.
And I really hemmed and hawed about that. And I thought, gosh, what am I doing? This is like, and back then it was like $4,900, which now it's increased in value. I could probably sell it for over 20.
Absolutely, like a Chanel bag.
Like a Chanel bag. So I've always had that in mind, like as long as you can, sell it or it has value, and that's how I've always collected art also.
Or pass it down to your kids.
Or pass it down, I mean,
there's plenty of my 19-year-old son, he's now wearing some of my, Armani and all that, because
so nice?
I've had it for years, like you said.
And you keep it well, but it's made well.
And I resold my shoes.
You do.
Speaking of that,
I love that.
I would rather buy a pair of Prada shoes than 20 whatever you can get at Walmart, but I keep them for years. And then when I wear them down, I resole them. I take them to the cobbler and I resole them, but I have my shoes for years because I love them, because they fit me well and they're quality. And that's really what we're talking about. Luxury defined should be quality over quantity. And really that's a cycle to break, though, because for some people, more means a sense of security.
Yeah.
Like if you can have, whether it's food or clothing or jewelry, you wear a lot of jewelry, even though it's cheap. For some reason, that speaks to them because they feel a little bit secure in having a lot.
I'm around that. And you and I in this area, we're around it a lot, And I mean, growing up in New York, it's funny, and Connecticut was pretty conservative. And that's why I always say, good God, don't judge a book by its cover. Right. I mean, I have been around more billionaires and broken down Birkenstocks and, cars that aren't, the Rolls Royces of the world. So it's always, it's really interesting. But I don't know. I think for me, it was always a financial decision too. And I wanted to collect something that I would have forever. Yeah. And that was special because so much love and work goes into it.
And you can be wealthy and poor too. So you can be wealthy and not live in luxury as well. Yeah. So again, it's not down to your net worth, and that's one of the messages I want to really come through on this conversation is that you can have billionaires and you visit their home, and there's very little of real worth in how they've created it and how they are living. Yeah. There's not a feeling of happiness and light and all, and you can go to someone has very little, and you step into their home, and it's very rich.
It's a rich story.
Filled with love and quality, and everything they do down to the food they serve you is also rich. I've been to homes where they have a lot, but the meal is tasteless and effortless. There's no effort.
And the conversation is tasteless.
The conversation's tasteless. So
casting a good dinner party is a lost art.
It is a lost art.
Yeah, good, everybody wants their impressive friends around sometimes, and but it's really interesting. I was having this conversation because, and also related to what you do, I find it fascinating that people put so much value in things and not themselves. And I was having this conversation about peptides in the world, and why do you spend that much money, or it's so expensive, and if only it wasn't so expensive for getting treatments. I said, my God, but just lay off Saks for a day a month. Like, are you kidding? It's you.
Saks, not sex.
Saks, not Saks, no. Never lay off Saks. Too long. So let's take a break occasionally.
Just making sure there's no confusion between those words. Saks Fifth Avenue.
Saks Fifth Avenue, and then, hey, wouldn't you love to know your blood work, and wouldn't you love to have your body worked on, and in a great state? So that's always surprising.
Starting first with the internal, the inside, the vessel,
which is so important.
One of the things that people say on their deathbed when there's billions in the bank and they can't save them, they say, I wish I had more time, right? Yeah. And so where does that time come from? But taking care of oneself and quality. And this is a little bit another level of self, but I've seen people also where they have the Chanel bag, they have or they have the whatever Armani suit for men, or whatever it is speaks of. Yeah. But their underwear, because I see people who come in and
that's really funny.
And it's like their socks have holes in it, and they're and my wife's seen me, if I get a little hole, I rip the socks off and they're going in the garbage because it's close to my body. So that's more important than what you're seeing. What's most important is what I'm feeling. So what I'm feeling inside, what I'm feeling outside, all of it is and down to our home and also what you put in your body.
Oh, God.
Again, quality
Working
of food,
on your personal vibe is so important, and you see it. You exude it. I mean, over the years when I've seen you at basketball games or in the parking lot of Whole Foods, you have that shine.
Thank
and
you.
have that light. Yeah. And, you brought up something about light. I worked on that quite a bit, because what I then thought is, no, I'm not showing off, because I have a few Instagram accounts, and they tend to be a little bit more, I think, inspirational and happy.
But that's also part of your business and what you're sharing.
And I'm inviting people to enjoy the fun with me. I'm not sort of sitting here going like, da-da-da-da-da, this is me, aren't I so fantastic? But I think really kind of, being a little bit of a Pied Piper, and if you look at it like allowing your light to shine, you can also lead people in the right direction. Yeah. And I kind of love that, and don't let anybody dim your light, because I do that a little bit too. And I think, the Irish Catholic in me sometimes is like, oh God, don't be so showy, and, be a little bit more humble. And I am, but I'm also doing really nice things, and I've learned with age to kind of accept that. I'm like, no, you know what, I'm doing just fine, because I do share my life.
Right.
but I do need those things for me.
Absolutely.
And they're less materialistic.
And you deserve it.
And I deserve it.
Yeah,
why not?
Why
You know?
not?
Yeah.
Who doesn't? We all deserve it.
We all deserve it.
Our natural state of divinity is beauty, is grace, is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's what people accept in terms of sorrow and all. Sure, we have hard days. Sure, we lose people, lose things, have to start from scratch and have these challenges. But our natural state is bliss. That's what I believe.
You're right. Yeah.
So we should always be more comfortable with attaining that and being in that state than we should in the place of sorrow.
Yeah.
And try to surround yourself with people that remind you of that. And it makes such a
true.
difference because there's way more people that are going to love you down. When you're down and when you're sad,
It's
they say that misery loves company, and you'll have a lot of friends that love to see you when you're down, but see how many people stick around when you're up and doing well, and then look at you and are inspired by you. There's going to be more jealousy than there will be people, chanting and going, "Hey, go get them, go do it! I love seeing you like this. I'm so happy you're happy."
Yeah.
Check that out.
Isn't that magical?
It is.
I mean, that's a super magical way of being, and it's also such a wonderful person to be that cheerleader. And I have a few people like that in my life, which I love. One of my friends is out in Reno, Meg Shea, and she does quite a bit of my editing. And it's just, to have that balance of a real sister.
Yeah, you got to have that.
is
And there's
great.
not a lot of them. You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot. You just
Yeah.
need a couple of those in your life that remind you, hey.
And that you trust, and then have
I'm
your
in
back.
I'm in your section. I'm in your, cheering section, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So speaking about cheering section, you also have a non-for-profit. Tell us
I
about
am
that.
on the board of the Fern House, and it's one of my favorite spots on the planet. It's right on Church Street off of Okeechobee, and we typically have about 56 men at a time, and it's a very strict, very successful program with a very low recidivism rate. We sometimes have guys with ankle bracelets. I highly recommend any parent seeking help for their child. We all have these very expensive rehabs, and God bless them, a lot of them are my friends. But I have to say that there's nothing like going into a place like a Fern House with the support that you have, 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
It's $200 a week, so most of the guys go out to work. If they can't afford it, the community
Chips
bands
in.
together
Yeah.
and chips in. It's a brotherhood. Men also really are much better off on their own. I've been with other organizations where it's mixed sexes, and typically the women actually don't do their work. They push the men, they support the man, and then all of a sudden the man is doing fine, and the woman is back to square one, and then they go back into the same environment, which is not easy.
And healing is different for men than women
Healing
in
is
most cases
different.
because
It
the
really
focus is
is.
different and,
Yeah.
and the lifestyle requirements are different.
Men
and
need a
life
purpose,
patterns,
and I think taking trade out of school was a really big issue because, like I said, I wasn't cut out to be a mathematician.
Right.
It's cute. I have to tell you something funny. So the principal, the school counselor would call my mom often, and she would say, Margaret's just doing so poorly in math, and she said, Ada, don't worry, that's hereditary. But I certainly knew how to make money, and I invested. I had a stock portfolio at 18 at Shearson Lehman. So it's you don't have to be just common sense goes a long way. But at any rate, we're bringing back those classes and those people that are volunteering and teaching these guys trade. Not everybody's going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Or, we need plumbers, and my God, they can make such a great living in air conditioning and what about muscle cars? I'm a big car girl, and I mean we're losing this whole squad of guys and women that can repair these old cars.
Yeah.
It's a lost art, so they can make as much money as any attorney these days.
This is great.
Yeah.
Share with us some websites for the magazines and.
Lux Lifestyle. Lux Lifestyle is we're on Instagram too,
and that's LUXE.
It's just LUX.
LUX.
LUX Lifestyle, and then Margaret Luce is my Instagram page, which I'm active on, and I love it.
And that's LUCE.
And that's LUCE.
That's where the EA comes in.
Yeah, that's right. Light. It means light,
Yes, it
which
does.
is nice.
Yeah.
It's a fun little name to have.
Yeah.
So.
And then you have another magazine called
Man Magazine. I'm a wellness editor there. So, my life really is focused on that, and it has been at a young age. Going to Hippocrates out in California when I was in my 20s acting, it was like, no, I'm going to just go inject wheatgrass juice in every orifice of my body, because sometimes the business can be an unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah,
and,
sure. You have
just
to
trying
reset.
to veer away from medications as much as possible and just do it holistically.
Yeah.
So that's where you come in.
That's one of the ways
The
we
man
met.
with the glowing skin.
One of the ways we met. It's
Yeah.
nice. I mean, besides being in a wonderful community that we share.
We do. We are very blessed here. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed to be here.
So, but we both go back and forth to New York. I'm coming up in a few days.
Oh,
so I'll
good.
be
It's just magic.
saying hi for you.
I love it. I love it. People complain all the time, but when you were born and raised there, it's like I lived through every era in New York. It was always,
People are like,
they're
they're protesting. I'm like, when are they not? Like,
when are they not?
It's like, someone got. I grew up where we learned you put your back to the wall in the subway. You don't stand by the tracks
no.
and this is going back, decades. So this is always, and you just
I
watch
never
yourself.
ran in the park with my Sony Walkman, and my earbuds. I mean, it's just always being
this
aware.
Is New York,
alert.
man, big
Yeah.
cities. You got to watch yourself.
But it's such a life force, and it was fun having my boot on because I actually stayed on the Upper East because I'm typically down Midtown, downtown. It was like I stayed in this little 7-block radius, hobbling around, and it was so much fun. Went to the Frick, had a different coffees. It was magic.
Good.
So, gosh, we could talk for a long
We could.
time.
This has been amazing. So hopefully this has been inspiring for our listeners. Go out and, it doesn't matter. It's not about a lot.
No,
right? And
it's
not about the
not.
money.
Less
it's
is
not about
more. Make it
find
count.
something that speaks to you, something that's going to, add to your life and do
people.
things that add to your life.
Yeah.
Not
that
just
grow your brain.
Yeah, it's not always about purchasing. Sometimes it's about giving.
Oh my
giving
God.
quality, giving luxury.
Totally.
Always feels good as well.
And just chatting with somebody, sometimes just making eye contact with somebody, even struggling, it just goes such a long way. And it's just that 1 minute, that one transference of energy is so important in this world. We need it.
And cherish yourself. What you put on your body.
Yeah.
Good sheets on your bed.
Oh, God. Isn't it the best? Yeah.
All right. We could go on and on, but this has been another Maximum Health Quality Living with yours truly, Dr. Ken Gray. Thank you, Margaret Luce.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for Lux Magazine and all the great work you're doing in Fernhouse. And if you've missed any portion of the show, it is available via all podcasts and is brought to you in part by Vel Health, velhealth.com. Download Vel today. Wellness within reach. See you next time.